Hey guys! So, my name is Gabby, and I am here to talk to you about the Overland Summers program called the American Challenge. I did the American Challenge. It was for me last summer, so summer of 2016, and when I signed up for the trip, I spent forever looking for different pictures, videos, information about the trip, like anything that I could find. And I had a really hard time with it, with the exception of the website, which gave some information but not a ton. So I thought that I would make this video for anybody who has signed up for the AC already, or for anybody who is looking to do the American Challenge in the future, just as a guide to help you decide whether you want to do it, or if you already signed up, just to give you more information about the trip. So for those of you who don't know that much about the American Challenge, it is a summer program run by Overland Summers, and it is a cross-country bike trip from starting in Charleston, South Carolina, and ending at the Santa Monica Pier in California. It's a whole thing where your front wheels touch both oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific, and normally your parents will fly out to the pier in Santa Monica to cheer you on when you come riding into the pier. So the trip is a little over 6 weeks. It says 6 weeks on the Overland website, but it ends up being about 6.5, I think. So the trip is usually consistent of 12 high school students, generally grouped by age, and 2 leaders who are generally coming right out of college and have led for Overland before. The trip is unsupported, which means that all of your items, your sleeping bag, all of your clothes, everything is carried on the back of your bike, in panniers, strapped onto your rear rack, whatever, how you choose to do it. There are 2 days of the trip that are supported, which are when you're going through the Mojave Desert in Arizona and California, and you will have generally 2 support crew, people who work for Overland, who will fly out, and they'll ride next to you in a van and carry water and food because it gets really, really hot out there. So those are only 2 days that are supported, but every other day you are carrying your own materials and everything on the back of your bike. So there are 2 different routes that you can do for the trip. There's the northern route and the southern route. My group did the southern route, so I'll be talking a little bit more about that than the northern route. But I tried to draw both of them out approximately. I don't know how the northern route goes, but I could kind of guess a little bit from what I'd heard. So the southern route, both trips you go from Charleston to LA. So your 2 starting points. I cannot see where I'm putting my finger. Okay, but so the southern route for me, we went down through Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, up through Arkansas, and then we went through the Oklahoma Panhandle, and then across the top of New Mexico, down into Arizona through the Grand Canyon, and then we ended in LA. The northern route, I think it's pretty much the same from the start to the finish. So, like, through Mississippi, I think it's almost the same, and same from the Grand Canyon through LA is approximately the same for both groups. But the northern route then comes out of the top of Arkansas, and I know they go through Kansas and Colorado, and that's different from going through Oklahoma. So I think that's approximately both groups. So again, I'm not too sure about the northern route, but that's the definite route of the southern route because that is how I did it. So my group, we had 5 buffer days. One in Tallahassee, Alabama, Star City, Arkansas, Norman, Oklahoma, Taos, New Mexico, and Cottonwood, Arizona. A buffer day is essentially where you do no biking almost at all. You'll bike to the grocery store, bike to maybe a pool or something like that, but with the exception of like maybe 4 or 5 miles, you're doing no biking at all. You're not putting on your biking shorts, you're not putting on your biking shoes, you're wearing camp clothes all day. Buffer day is really nice because you'll get to go out to breakfast in town. Like when we were in Tallahassee, we went out to a huddle house that was a couple miles away from the church we were staying at, and it's so fun. You'll get to sit around, like watch movies and just hang out with your friends all day, and it's just a relaxing day where you don't have to worry about the stress of biking and getting anywhere at all. Total mileage for the trip is about 3,200, a little bit over that. So the average per day is approximately 85 miles, but it obviously varies. The beginning of the trip, you're doing less mileage, and it's about 60 to like 70-ish. And then at the end of the trip, you're averaging almost 100 miles a day. So it'll even out to 85 miles a day, but you're starting off pretty slow. So you get used to being on a bike and how the trip goes and everything before you really are racking up the mileage, which is nice. Also is a lot of varying temperatures throughout the trip. down in the south, in like Alabama and Mississippi, it gets really hot. I remember one day when we were in Selma, it got up to, I think, 110. It was boiling. But then when you're out in New Mexico, you wake up and it's 50 degrees outside and it's freezing cold. Or, I mean, it's not freezing cold, but during the summer, it's pretty cold, especially if you're wearing bike shorts and a tank top. It can be pretty cold when the wind's whipping you at 3 a.m. That is something that was not super enjoyable, and neither was the heat on the other end of the spectrum. But most days, it was pretty average. I want to say it was like 80 or 70 something for generally throughout the country, especially with the wind and you're biking. So it ended up not being that bad. But there were definitely days of the trip where you had extremes. And even in desert day, it got to be, I think, 102 out. And it was, I mean, it gets hot. But it's something that you learn to deal with, I think, throughout the trip. So one of the biggest questions that I get asked by my friends and family when I talk to them about the trip is, where did you stay? On the first night of the trip, we stayed in a campground. And my trip was a little bit different because on our first night, my girl leader, there were raccoons around her tent, so she freaked out, and for the rest of the trip, she tried not to camp if we could avoid it. So we in the South stayed mostly in churches, church basements and everything, and they were super, super nice. Everybody was really hospitable, and it was so much fun. And then when you get out more towards the Midwest, like Oklahoma and New Mexico, we tended to stay in campgrounds a lot, like RV parks and everything. But it was nice, and especially in Taos, we had a really nice campground where we were looking up at the stars, and that was amazing. That was nice. Generally, when we're out in California, you're staying in hotels because it's hard to find campgrounds. Both desert days, we were staying in hotels. I think we stayed in a couple hotels in Arizona. We stayed in a hostel the last night of the trip. So in Santa Monica, you're staying in the youth hostel. So you're either staying in a campground, a hotel, or a church. Also, people ask me a lot about showers and laundry. You do laundry about once a week, and you shower almost every day. There's a shower almost everywhere you go. Some churches don't have them, but I'd say most of them do. Same with most campgrounds have them. You will very rarely hit a place that doesn't have a shower. I'm moving on to food. So generally for overland trips, they have what's called the 6-meal day. So you'll have breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, dessert. That's how most overland trips are run. However, the AC is a little bit different. You pretty much have no scheduled meals with the exception of dinner and dessert. But besides that, your eating plan is how you choose to eat it. So for me, I'd wake up in the morning and I would eat a bagel before we got on the road. You stop a lot during the day. My group, we didn't stop a ton, but I think you stop generally every 30 to 40 miles. And then you'd eat a snack, you'd eat a couple bars. You could make a sandwich the night before if you wanted to. I usually chose not to because the bread got soggy and I didn't like eating it and ended up throwing it away. I'd eat a bagel in the morning, I'd eat granola bars all throughout the day, and then you'd have dinner and sometimes dessert at night. You stop at a grocery store every day or sometimes every other day depending on if you're in a really rural area. But you'll stop at a grocery store or a Walmart and you'll pick up food. You'll have different crews. Those of you who've been on Overland know before how that works. But it's like Spec Ops, Journal, Cook Crew, and Clean Crew. And each of those groups have their own specific job. Generally my group, we get into the grocery store and then my leaders would be like, okay, Journal is going to get breakfast food. Spec Ops is going to go get bars. And then they'd have Cook Crew usually pick out dinner because they were the ones who were cooking. And then, like, Clean Crew would pick out dessert or something. So that was generally how it worked. And we'd usually hit a grocery store every day. It was very, very rare if we didn't. So then on buffer days, if you're staying in a town, generally we would go out to breakfast. But if we were in a more secluded area, we would get pancake mix or something, and we would make pancakes and bacon wherever we were staying. The typical day would generally go something like this. You'd wake up between 3:30 and 5 a.m. depending on where you're in the time zone. You would pack up your sleeping bag, you'd go brush your teeth, everything you had to do in the morning to get ready, and then you'd throw everything in your panniers, and you would pack your rear rack. You'd eat breakfast if you wanted to eat your bagel. You would do what's called a rear check. So you would basically shake your rack really hard to see if anything was falling off. And then you would do it again in what was called the safety circle. So everybody in the group would get in a circle. and you would sing the safety song where you basically checked your brakes, your tires, your rack, anything that could go wrong during the ride. You would check before you even got out to see if there's anything that needed to be fixed before we started biking and got a couple miles in and somebody ran into an issue. The goal is usually to get out by what is called first light. So that is when the sun first starts rising. Normally we didn't get out by first light, we'd get out a little bit afterwards, but you would really want to try to get out by first light as best as you could. You get out, you'd form a biking order. If it was really dark out, you would put on your rear light on the back of your bike. But normally you didn't have to, especially if you were out by first light or after. It varies per group how much you bike before your first break. But my group, we normally biked 40 to 45 miles before we took our first break of the day. So we wanted to get kind of into it and get used to making calls and everything before we stopped. My group, how it worked is you would take a break at 40 miles, then at 35, then 30, then at 25, then 20, and you kind of go down by 5 miles until you got to camp. And obviously, normally the way somebody would get a flat tire, something would happen, so you'd end up taking more breaks than that, but scheduled breaks would happen like that. So generally during the ride, at some point you'd hit either a grocery store or a Walmart, and you'd get all the food for the next day, or the next couple days, depending on where you were. And you'd get into camp, and the first priority is to get group gear unpacked. So that's bike locks, the pot, anything that the group in totality might need. Overland has the kind of mentality of what's called GBS, or group before self. So anything that pertains to the group comes before anything that pertains to only yourself. So once you got all the group gear unpacked and kind of laid out on the table or a specified location, you would unpack your own rack and maybe lay out a sleeping pad to blow out if you needed to, or anything else that you had to do for yourself, like take off your bike shorts, get into camp clothes, whatever. And then generally what would happen is cook crew would start making dinner if we got stuff for dinner, and if we didn't get anything for dinner, if we gotten kind of late, we would order food generally, or somebody would, like if we were especially if we were at a church, the leader, like the guy who owned the church, would drive one of our leaders out to maybe Subway or something, and they would pick up food for us. While people were cooking dinner, while our leaders were going to go get dinner, we would take showers, we would get ready, we would kind of, I don't know, relax from the day and hang out as a group. Normally, we did dinner around probably, I want to say 5:30 or so, 5 or 5:30. We'd have dinner, and then we'd clean up from dinner, clean crew would clean from dinner, and then immediately afterwards we'd have dessert, and then right after dessert we'd go to bed. And trust me, I know this sounds early, but we'd go to bed between 6:30 and 7. Like, we never went to bed after 7 unless it was going to be buffer day the next day. And I know that sounds early, but you're waking up at earliest 3:30 a.m., latest 5. And so you want to get to bed, and you're exhausted. I mean, you just biked literally all day, from sunup to sundown. You're biking. So you want to get to bed that early. You do the whole thing all over again the next day. The trip is very repetitive. You're doing the same exact thing almost every day, with the exception of buffer days. You are waking up, you're biking, and then you're going to bed. There is almost zero variation in your day. But it's nice. I thought it was pretty meditative, and by the end of the trip, it's almost just, it's what you do. You don't think about anything else. You can't imagine doing anything else with your day. You can't imagine what life is going to be like when you get back and you have to get in a car. Like, I mean, these are absurd thoughts. And your entire life is this trip, is biking, and you love it. Like, by the end of the trip, I did not want to get off my bike. This trip is incredible. I cannot stress enough how much I loved this trip. It is hands down the best experience of my entire life, and probably will be the best experience of my entire life. I mean, you do so many incredible things. You go so many incredible places. You go to the watermelon capital of the world. You go to the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma. You go to the Mississippi River. You go to the catfish capital of the world, which is super random, but they have a museum and everything. You climb Petit Jean Mountain in Arkansas. My personal group, we went to what's called Abiquiu Lake in New Mexico. You cross the Continental Divide. We grew into the Four Corners, and because we went to the Four Corners, we got to go to Colorado. We go to the Grand Canyon. I mean, my group, we did so many personal things that just were incredible. We went to an Amish country store and we ate fried pies. We got to climb on hay barrels in Oklahoma. We had a prom in New Mexico. And also New Mexico, we got to go hiking. We went through a cave. We had a toga party. I mean, there's so many things on this trip that are so fun, and you honestly, you make the best friends of your life on this trip, and you come out with these people who've shared the experience of a lifetime with you, and I mean, there are no words for it. Obviously, there were a lot of really hard days of the trip. When we were going up Hetty Jean in Arkansas, and that was the first probably really hard day of the trip. You're climbing 1,000 feet in like a mile, I think. Or it's something crazy like that. It's hard. But when you get to the top, the view is incredible. And it's totally worth it. Our longest day of the trip was 116 miles. And that was when we were going into Norman, Oklahoma. And that, for me personally, a lot of people really liked that day, but I thought it was really hard. I loved Norman. I thought that was one of my favorite buffer days that we had. But the bike there was hard. And you get in and you have Chipotle afterwards, and it's an Overland tradition. And, I mean, at the end, I look back on it and I'm like, oh, that was fun. But during the 116 miles, I was dying. I mean, I was having such a hard time. I mean, I look back on it, and I think it was fun. So the hardest part of my trip, in general, this is across the board. You can ask anybody who was in my group. And the hardest part of the trip was this one day when we were going through the Oklahoma Panhandle, so no man's land. I mean, it was literally no man's land. I think I did not see a single house, I think, that day. You're biking on this straight road for a mile. I mean, I think the whole day was like 72 miles or something, so it wasn't that long in comparison to our other days, but it takes forever. And you're looking out at the fields next to you, the stretch of fields, and all you can see is grass and cows. I mean, forever. And straight ahead of you is just this one road. And the wind is whipping you. I mean, it's so strong, it's pushing you backwards. I think our average mileage that day was like 7 miles an hour. And it was horrible. It was absolutely awful. But again, just like with Norman, I look back on it, and I think that it was fun, and I would do it again if I got to spend time with my friends on the trip. Because that day, even though it was absolutely horrible, and it was so hard, it was me and 2 other girls. We were kind of by ourselves, and we were singing, we were laughing, we made a joke out of it. Obviously, there were a lot of other really hard days. Our highest elevation of the trip was almost 10,000 feet. We had to climb this 2-mile, super, super steep mountain when we were going up into Taos, and it was so hard. I mean, it was crazy. But somebody, I don't know who it was, but somebody on the road had marked like 1 mile, like halfway done. Like, I mean, it was fun. Also, in Arizona, we had to go up this mountain called Mingus Mountain, and we had to go through this ghost town called Jerome. And this was probably my favorite mountain of the trip. Everybody kind of splits up on mountains depending on how fast you bike uphill. So I was with this kid named Hunter, and the whole time we were just talking about the most random things, and it was so fun. And it was basically 12 miles of this one hill, and it was really hard, but it was so much fun. Every Overland trip has what's called a challenge day, and doesn't matter, I think, what group you're on. Every single group has one. And a lot of people will ask if the AC has a challenge day, and some people who, like, I've talked to in the past say, oh, the entire AC is a challenge day. Every day is one. But that's a lie. The 2 challenge days are what are called the desert days. These are the 2 days where you are biking through the Mojave Desert. It is hot, it is hilly, and it is long. They are both, I think, about 110 or 111 miles. You do have a support van next to you, so they are blaring music the whole time. You get to choose out a playlist beforehand. And they are bringing you food and nice snacks. You do things like take soy sauce shots, and you get snow cones, and it's fun overall, but those 2 days are 2 of the hardest of the trip. Also, the second to last day of the trip is almost entirely uphill. It's like 60 miles uphill. You are climbing the San Gabriels to get to LA, and literally the entire day is uphill. And it's hard, but the scenery is beautiful. I mean, you're climbing up and you reach these kind of outposts where you're looking out over these mountains, and it's gorgeous. On a campground at the top of the mountain, they say on the Overland trip you can see the lights of LA, and you can't really, but if you stay up at night, and it's the second to last day of the trip, so we're kind of like whatever, you can stay and you can watch the sunset over the mountains, and it's beautiful. So one of the funny things about my group was on the second desert day, when we were first gotten to California, we had a flash flood warning. And so we had to drop our bikes on the side of the road, and we had to cram into the van of our support crew. And there were 16 people crammed into this tiny van, and it is pouring rain outside. Like, I mean, torrential downpour. It was a huge thunderstorm, and it was crazy, and we were sweating. It was horrible. We were sitting there, like, all screaming. We were like, get us out of this stupid van. But it was so funny, and we laugh about it all the time. So that was funny. That was humorous. My group was the fastest AC group ever in existence. How it works is when you get into camp, the leaders have to call the Overland office and basically tell them that we are into camp. And every day, our leaders would call the Overland office, and they'd be like, wait, you're already in? And it gets so early. So my group, we were the fastest group ever. Generally, my group, I think, was between, like, I want to say 14 to, like, 25 miles an hour per day. Our fastest day, like, in totality, was when we were going to Shiprock, New Mexico. I remember we got in by 12:30 that day. We were cruising. And I think our average was 25 miles an hour that day. We were blazing. It was so fast. And that was the day we had a toga party. We went to the Four Corners. So that was fun. That was totally worth it. I'm not really sure how fast most groups go, but we were by far the fastest. So on the Overland website, when you sign up for the AC, it has what's called a training plan for you to do before you start the trip. So I followed this training plan religiously. I did every single ride that it told me to do. And I remember thinking that it was impossible. I wanted to quit before the trip had even started. Like, the training, you probably don't need to follow it super religiously like I did, but you should be very comfortable on a bike before you get on the trip. You need to know how to pack a pannier, know how to pack a rack, and you should be able to bike at least 40 miles without stopping, because that is generally how long you'll go before your first break sometimes. So I'm just going to tell you a couple things that I either didn't bring or did bring and was really, really glad that I brought. One thing is a handlebar bag. I did not bring a handlebar bag, and I wish that I had. A lot of the kids on my trip brought one, or if they didn't bring one, they ended up buying one. It is almost essential because you can put snacks in there, you can grab them while you're biking, you can put your camera there, so if you need to take a picture of something, you can whip it out and take a picture while you're biking. Another thing is you want to make sure that you have at least one other kind of camp clothes, like one set of camp clothes, with the exception of the clothes that you bring to the airport. So a lot of students will wear like a t-shirt and shorts to the airport, and they'll think, oh, that's my camp clothes. You should bring at least one other pair of shorts, if not two, and definitely another t-shirt. You should also bring a long sleeve shirt or arm warmers or something, because like I talked about earlier, in New Mexico and Arizona, it can get cold in the morning. Like, 50, sub 50, and with the wind whipping at you, it will be cold. You will want a long sleeve shirt or something you can take off later, but you're going to want it at the beginning of the ride. Another thing, kind of going off of that, is you're going to want to bring a thin sweatshirt, like a fleece or something, and sweatpants. I brought them, and I was really happy I did, because it can get cold at night, especially if you're camping out west. Other just good things to bring is you want to bring a camera, you're going to want to bring a decent amount of spending money, because you're going to want to get souvenirs and everything from wherever you're going, and also a swimsuit. It says optional on the Overland website, but you're going to want one for sure. Remember that everything that you bring has to fit into 2 panniers, so pack smart and don't bring too much stuff, and really think about what you're really going to need on the trip. Now, if you haven't done an Overland trip before in the past and you're thinking about doing the AC, I would personally recommend that you would do a different Overland trip before you do the AC, because AC is a huge commitment, and you really want to make sure that you like the format of Overland trips before you go on the AC. And now this can be any Overland trip, would help probably get your mind set on whether you like Overland or not as a summer program. But if you are really focused on doing the AC itself, I would do a biking trip before you do the AC. At my first Overland trip, I did Maine Coast Leadership, which was a 2-week trip in Maine, in northern Maine. We hiked up Mount Katahdin, we did some backpacking, and I got certified in Leave No Trace training. I've also done Nova Scotia and Acadia, which is a 3-week-long biking trip in Nova Scotia, and also in northern Maine by Bar Harbor and Acadia National Park. And I've also done Language and Service Costa Rica, which is a 3-week-long program in Costa Rica where you have service in the morning and then you have 5-hour language class in the afternoon. Overland has trips all over the world, though, in all sorts of categories. There's leadership, hiking, biking, language, field studies, service. I mean, there's everything, and there's something everywhere. So if you want to travel somewhere specific, I'm sure there's something for you. But again, if you're really thinking about doing the AC, I would do a biking trip. When you sign up, you have to remember that this trip is really hard, both mentally and physically. I mean, you're biking all day, and that's not only hard on your body, but it's hard on your mind. I mean, you have to get used to this looking out at nothing sometimes for hours and just pedaling for forever and what feels like so long. Out of this trip with not only friends for life, but just this amazing experience, and you're never ever going to be able to shut up about it. I mean, my friends complain all the time because I talk about it constantly. I still have a group chat with all the kids from my group. We have a Facebook group. I mean, we made a BuzzFeed quiz about which member of ACB are you. I mean, all these things. We made a Spotify playlist of all of our favorite songs from the trip. It's really an amazing experience, and you are never going to forget it. And I mean, I cry sometimes thinking about the pier, and like I cry seeing pictures of the pier. Sometimes I'll go through pictures of the trip and I'll start crying. I mean, I miss these people with my whole heart. I love them so much, and I'm sure everybody can say that in my group, and applies for any AC group ever. This trip is honestly life-changing. If you have any questions, you can feel free to comment or like ask me anything. I'm more than happy to talk about the trip. I could go on about it for hours, honestly. You can check out the Overland website. I'll put a link to it in the description. And you can also follow my group on Instagram. Even Instagram, it's called AC_blazing. So you can check that out if you want. My group art pictures also on the website and in the Overland catalog. So, I mean, we're the real deal, guys. So I hope that this video was helpful. I know this is something that I probably would have been looking for when I signed up for the AC. So if you're signed up, congratulations. Good luck. You're going to love it. I know it. And if you are looking to sign up for the AC, you should, because I promise you it'll be the best decision of your entire life. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And yeah, alright, thanks, bye.